are bright and shiny in my mind. You got me loving, hating, crazy indecision in my mind.
Welcome to the Fall Podcast, where the focus is on deer hunting, tips, tricks, tactics, and stories from across the Midwest. And now, here is your host, Aaron Blasey.
Welcome to the Fall Podcast. I am your host, Aaron Blasey, and this is episode number 16. And today, I am down at PSE Archery down in Tucson, Arizona, and I am joined by Bobby Vargas. Bobby Vargas works for PSE. He is basically the head bow technician, but he also does a lot with their marketing team. And Bobby is literally probably one of the best, if not the best, bow technicians I've ever met in my life. He knows everything about them, and he's very good at building bows, tuning them. I mean, you name it, he's done it, and he's really good at it. So, you know, we're down here shooting some video assets for work, and I thought it'd be nice to get Bobby on here and really sit down and break down some things for everybody. We talk about hunting setups and, you know, brace height and, you know, what to look for in a bow, or if you're new to bow hunting or even archery, what you should look for to get into something. I mean, we talk about it all, and, you know, Bobby's just a wealth of knowledge with all that stuff, and this really came out really good, and I'm glad we did it because I learned a lot too. I'm not gonna lie. I spent a week with him, you know, and he taught me a ton, not just about bows, but like arrow building and everything. You know, I used to think arrows are arrows and match up the right spine and go shoot them. Well, no, there's a lot more that goes into that, and he's really opened my eyes to that. So we don't get into arrow building today. That's going to be another podcast, but this one's all about bows, how to tune them, how to set them up and everything. So also to give a little update about me and what's kind of going on with the deer woods here. You know, nothing really new. You know, I've got a couple more stands to hang, which I'm gonna get out next week and hang some over at LP camp, you know, where our big family farm, and really excited about doing that. And I'm also excited about, I ordered a Cuddy Link system for our deer camp, for our family farm. So I'm really excited about that. We're getting a series of 8 cameras, and we're not getting the cell cameras. What we're doing is we're going to disperse these cameras throughout the property. There's going to be 8, with the 9th camera being a home base. So basically you put the home base at deer camp where, you know, our hub is, and all these 8 cameras, they talk to each other. So they all send the pictures back to one SD card that's at home base. So all you got to do is pull that one SD card that's at home and put it in your computer, and you can folder them out. They'll, you know, you can see every camera and what's going on, so you don't have to go into your spot to check any cameras. So I'm really excited about getting it set up, and really using that. I think all the guys at camp will really like it, and it'll just be another way where we don't have to go in and put any scent or, you know, put any more pressure on the farm. So that's enough of me rambling on. I want to get Bobby on here, so I hope everybody enjoys this, and thanks for listening. All right, here today we are with Bobby Vargas of PSE. Bobby, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How are you? Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, good. You know, we're down here in Tucson at PSE. We've been here all week and doing some video assets and some marketing things, and it's been a lot of fun. I appreciate you having us down.
Heck yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We got a lot of great content with you guys here, and we really love your work and what you do, and
yeah,
you know, love working with you too. That makes the whole experience so much better.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I want to get into a lot of things today, and you and I have been kind of talking, and I pick your brain throughout the season, and just because you're a bow technician guru and one of the best that I know, and I just kind of want to get into, you know, common mistakes and ways to tune your bow, and, you know, everything in between, basically. But first, give everybody a little bio about yourself and who you are, what you do for PSE, and kind of how long you've been here doing it.
All right, yeah. So I've been in the industry for 27 years. I've been shooting since I was 7. I just turned 46 this year. I know that's hard to believe, but I'm a whole 46 years old this year. But I started shooting a bow when I was 15, and luckily I landed a job at a local bow shop here in Tucson, and worked there for 4 years. I was a floor manager and coincidentally in charge of the archery department, and because I was in charge of the archery department, I was a buyer. So that's how I got to learn and meet, some of the people with PSE. I already knew who they were and what they were. I was already shooting the product and was a big fan, still a fanboy.
Mm-hmm.
But I was a fan of PSE, and then I got to work in an industry where I got to deal directly with them. And then the more I dealt with them, I got to create a relationship with PSE. Yeah. And ultimately, after 4 years of working at a gun shop here in town, I had a meeting with the VP of sales at the time and said he had a spot for me and asked me if I was interested, and came right over. So I already had a little bit of archery experience, and every day of the last 22 years has been a learning experience.
Yeah.
You just never stop learning.
So on a daily basis, what do you do here at PSE then?
So what I do here daily currently is I'm in the marketing department. So it's a real broad statement. It's hard to narrow it down to one thing, but I do a lot of different things out here. Currently, we're in the middle of our 2019 catalog production.
Okay.
And that consumes everybody in our department for 90 days, 120 days, because
Yep.
all our complete focus is on getting that catalog done and ready. And with doing that, we're working with all of the other departments here, because we can't get our catalog done unless every other department here is getting their job done to get us the product for photos, getting us the right descriptions, the right colors, the right whatever, so that we can put it in the catalog the way it's supposed to be. Among other things, I'm in charge of our pro staff, our national and international shooting team, the guys that shoot at the top level. So those guys report to me and Blake Shelby. Also, I'm in charge of taking care of getting all the equipment to all of the TV show personalities.
Okay.
We set all those bows up for them here and make sure that they get their allocations. I'm the one that sets up and ships out all the bows to writers for magazines, anybody doing any kind of review or write-up. I'm the go-to for that, and I'm the one that sends that equipment out, and also in charge of getting that equipment back too. That's a bigger chore than getting it out, but still, we've got to do it. And and just working with all the other departments here the best I can to make sure they have what they need from us to do their job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many bows do you think you're working on a year?
Oh shoot, that is a hard question to answer. So I'll lay it down. Last week before I came out here, this week I haven't touched the bow because you kept me busy all week. But last week I had from Tuesday to Thursday I had to set up 16 bows for
Oh, wow.
a TV show. And that's just, I don't have to build them, meaning from the bottom up build them. I get them out of the warehouse in the box.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to set each one of them up, knocking loop, peep sight, peep, rest, everything, paper tuning, setting it to that person's exact draw length and weight and everything. So I had to do 16 of those bows in 2 days on top of doing my regular day-to-day stuff. So that was probably a busier week than others, but I am at the very least doing 2 or 3 bows a day for somebody.
Okay.
There's very few days where I'm not setting up a bow for somebody.
Okay.
But do the math on that, however many days you work in a year, but we're doing 1 or 2 bows a day for somebody.
Yeah, you've done thousands.
Easy
Yeah.
Easy over the years.
Well, to kind of get into that, I've got some questions here, and I'm just going to start rattling them off here. And what are some common mistakes that people are making? And I know it's kind of a loaded question in a way, but as far as like setting their bow up, what are some common mistakes if they're doing them themselves, or even if they're taking them to a pro shop? What are some mistakes that could be made?
I think probably one of the biggest mistakes people are making is overthinking it too much. Especially the guys that aren't too sure about their equipment and setting up the equipment and what needs to be done. I think they may overthink it too much and not know that they're actually doing a good job on their bow when they're putting it together. And on top of that, probably the next biggest mistake that most people make, and it drives me nuts here, is they won't leave the paper tuning machine and get out on the range.
Okay.
And they won't get out on the range until they get that bullet hole through paper. There's so many other things you can do to that bow. other than seeing how it shoots through paper. 'Cause all it's telling you is how the arrow is flying through the air at that moment. It's not telling you everything that you need to know and can find out when you're on the range. And too many people they want and need that bullet hole. It's that security blanket to let them know in their minds that it's that arrow shooting straight.
Right.
And yes, it is, but there are so many other things that you can and want to do to your bow other than just shooting it through paper.
Yeah, like you said, it's a security blanket. It's extra comfort for guys knowing that, okay, my arrow is, to the guys that aren't doing what you're doing, basically, and behind the scenes, it's like, my arrow's flying straight.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're thinking,
Yeah.
and it's not kicking or, for the longest time, I didn't even know what a paper tune was, until...
Wasn't life great for you shooting your bow before you
It
knew
was.
what that was?
Because all you did was went out there and shoot. That's
Yeah.
all you do. You just grab your bow, and you know what? You hit a pie plate at 30 yards, 40 yards,
Mm-hmm.
and you're fine. You could go kill animals or do whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with the paper tuning, it's kind of not in a way a headache, but it's just something else that you have to go to the shop to get done.
Yes.
Or, you could build your own paper tuner, but then you got to know how to paper tune it. And maybe that might be what we get into next, Explain when you're paper tuning it. Let's say you have a right tear on your bow. What do you do to correct that?
Well, if you're a right-handed shooter and you're getting a right tear, well, I guess either way. I mean, if you're referring to a right tear, if your knock is tearing to the right and your point is pointing to the left.
Yep.
When you're doing that, you start with the arrow rest. Start with the easier things. There's a lot of different things you can do to get that out, but start with the easier things. If it's just as much as a minor arrow rest adjustment, go there first. So many guys think that the arrow rest has to be just perfectly down the middle of that shaft for their bow to shoot right. And ideally, that's where you want it. But if it's not there, it's okay. It's hard to get people to understand that it is okay. It does get to the point where it's too far one way or the other.
Right.
But if it's not quite in the center, it's okay. So if you're getting a lateral tear, go to your arrow rest first. And typically, follow your point. So if you're getting a knock right tear, it means your point's to the left. Adjust your arrow rest a little bit.
To the left.
Yes, following
Okay.
the point.
Okay.
But just ever so little bit. Just follow it and get it back.
So follow your knock point. So wherever your arrow is going in at. So if your arrow's going in, making the first initial hole, and then your veins are off to the right, you want to follow that left hole, that first
Yes.
initial hole.
The point.
Okay.
The point
Yep.
part of it. Yeah.
So, do you ever do what's called bare shaft tuning? And is it that important to do it?
I don't. I've been shooting for 35 years or however long it is, and I've heard of it before. I've tried it before a long time ago, and I personally didn't feel like I was gaining anything by doing it. And there's a lot of people that live and die by bare shaft tuning their bows, and those guys can outshoot me all day long, so I'll never question their theory on that. But my theory is I'm never going to shoot a bare shaft. Why would I need to know how that arrow flies?
As a bare shaft.
Yeah, as a bare shaft. But I will say that the one thing a bare shaft tune will do is help to let you know that your arrows are spined correctly for your bow.
Okay.
That's what it'll help you do. But any other tuning aspect of it, personally, I don't really feel like you're gaining anything by doing it other than knowing that the arrow's spined. But hopefully your dealer gave you the right spined arrow when you left the shop.
Right.
And our dealers are knowledgeable enough to know that they've given you that right shaft. So if they've given you the right arrow, then there's no need to retest that again at home.
I see.
But yeah, personally, I've never I shouldn't say never, but I don't bare shaft tune now, and I get really, really good results with our tuning methods now.
Okay. For anybody that's out there that wants to, paper tune their own bow, let's say they have their own paper tuner and they're just kind of getting into it, what should they know to get started with it? How far does the paper tuner have to be away from where you're shooting? And, what are some common things that they should know to be successful at it?
Well, you want to get about 5 feet away, roughly. Give the arrow some time to get out of the bow and show you, which direction it's going. But even before you get that far, you want to make sure that whatever arrow rest you have set up, that you're getting the best clearance that you can. I would say the majority of the guys out there that are hunting, most of them are probably shooting a full capture style rest, like a whisker biscuit or something like that. So vein contact is not an issue. But with
Mhm.
whatever other rest you're shooting, you need to make sure that you're getting a clean release on that arrow. There's no contact anywhere, because if your veins are hitting any part of your rest, it's not going to, no adjustment you can make to that rest is going to change how it tears through paper, because you're crashing out of the bow.
Okay.
So make sure you have good vein clearance. Stand about five or so feet away. And also, you have to do the shooting. You can't let anybody else shoot your bow and paper tune your bow. They can do it and get a good starting point, but we have that here. We deal with that here all day, every day. People send their bows into us because they can't get it to get a good paper tune at home, so they send it here to us to do it. Well, we can do the best we can, and we can get it to tune here, but you can tune it and hand it to me, and I'll get a different tear than anybody else here would. So make sure you're doing it. Make sure you have proper grip, proper stance, and make sure that you're shooting it the way you shoot. Anchor it the way you would normally anchor. Hold no grip the way you would normally anchor, and get about 5 feet away from the paper, and make sure your veins are clearing your rest, and go from there.
Okay. So now I'd like to transition to like a bow hunting setup. What does your bow hunting setup consist of, as far as, what rest are you using, what's your specs, what draw length, what poundage are you pulling, and arrow spine? Like what's your perfect setup for you?
So right now, my perfect setup is my current hunting setup. It's the PSE Expedite. It's our speed bow of the product line, and I'm shooting it in the with the high let-off modules.
Okay.
So I've got it at 90% let-off, 70 pounds. And even as I'm getting older now, I'm learning I want to say, just to save face, I don't need 70, but more, my shoulders aren't liking 70 anymore.
Right.
But I'm going to shoot 70 as long as I can. But for the next couple of years, I'm probably going to drop down to more of that 60, low 60 poundage range. But my current setup, anyway, to answer your question, 70-pound Expedite, ECS cam, high let-off module. I got the PSE 359 shafts. So, they're weighing about 400 grains, right about there, 405.
Yep.
And 27.5-inch draw, and I'm shooting about 305, 310.
Okay. That's pretty good for a 27.5-inch draw too.
Yeah.
Now, you and I were talking, I think it was last night, you and I were talking about, you were trying to convince me to shoot a 125 grain point, and I've only ever shot 100 grain points, and that's something hard for me to fathom, shooting a bigger point. Now, explain to me why I should switch up and shoot a bigger point. What were you explaining?
I really like shooting that heavier tip out there, and the biggest reason for me is, living out west, 98% of my hunting is going to be out here, and out here, I don't have the luxury of sitting in a tree. And with your week here in Tucson, you probably didn't see one tree we could put a stand in, I bet. So I don't have that luxury of sitting in a stand where I'm gonna get a shot at 15, 20, 25 yards.
Right.
So it's not uncommon for us to have to take a long shot. And for me, and for anybody really, with that heavier grain tip out there, it helps maintain much better long range groups for me.
Okay.
My groups get a lot tighter downrange, and also, once that arrow gets downrange, it carries better kinetic momentum. It carries better velocity downrange, and I know it doesn't sound right because you're putting a heavier tip out there, but because you still have that mass weight of the shaft, that heavier tip is going to carry that arrow a little bit faster downrange. Yep. Not leaps and bounds, but still. But the biggest reason for me is that heavier tip helps to guide that arrow, and now that heavier tip is pulling that arrow behind it, it's gonna pull it into tighter groups downrange.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah. So my hunting setup, I shoot a Carbon Air, ECS 32, ECS cam, and I'm shooting. My hunting arrow is about a 480 grain hunting arrow.
Wow.
And I'm a 28-inch draw. In my apex right now basically is from 50 to 60. That's where my arrow is like really starting to drop. My pin gap is really starting to fall off. Now with that, if I was to move to a 125 grain point, which would make my arrow over 500 grains, where would I see my apex being? Is my pin gap going to be better from 20 to 30? Like, how does my pin gap work?
You know what you're going to see with that is that overall your pin gap, like your 20, 30, 40, your pin gap might get a little bit wider, but throughout the entire spectrum of your pins, you're going to be a little more consistent throughout there.
Okay.
With an arrow that heavy, you could get away with getting into a lighter spined arrow and still using that heavier tip, and be able to get rid of that apex, like you say, where you have that big gap between 50 and 60. But keeping that same arrow and putting a heavier tip on there, it's going to affect the spine of that shaft, giving you better downrange groups. But I think that heavier tip out front is going to help drive and pull that shaft or pull that arrow downrange better, and it's going to essentially help give you a more even pin gap throughout your entire sight setting.
Yeah, and that was kind of, for me, never shooting a 125 grain tip. I'm like, well, why do I need to shoot it? 100 grain has been doing everything it needs to do for me, but you kind of opened my eyes to trying something new, but it's still hard for me to wrap my head around doing it.
So I think the biggest advantage you're going to get from it, because I shot 100 grain tips for forever too, and I just would just deal with that big pin gap between 40 or 50 or 50 or 60, depending on what bow I had set up. I just dealt with it because that's just the way it was. But once I learned that putting that heavier tip out there is going to help to even my pin settings throughout my entire set, I never turned back to 100 grains. So you say 100 grain tip did everything you needed as far as you killed every animal you shot at.
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of not having enough with 100 grain tip, but it's going to help with that pin gap. So where it's going to give you the greatest advantage is, if you ever have to gap your pins, if you have a target that's between those apex pins, we'll call them, you're at that distance. Every yard matters.
Yeah.
And when you're having to gap pins that are that far apart, that's the difference between either a huge miss or possibly even wounding that animal. So I think by going to that heavier grain tip and getting that even pin gap throughout your entire spectrum, I think that's going to be your greatest advantage with going to that 125 grain tip.
Yeah, and I'd like to transition a little bit to the ECS cam. We've been talking about the ECS cam. It's the Evolve cam system, and we've been talking a lot about in the last 3 days doing this video work and everything. And back not even 10 years ago, PSE has always been known as the speed bow, and everybody would say it's radical. A lot of my friends that have shot PSE, like, it just feels like there's so much vibration. It's speed, short brace sight. They don't think it's forgiving. But you've really opened my eyes to even a shorter brace sight being just as forgiving as a 7 to a 7.5 inch brace sight.
Yes.
Short by, could be 5.5 inches, could be 6 inches. And, with the cams now, the X-Force technology you had before was kind of the speed technology, correct? Mm-hmm. And now with this Evolve cam system, you still have that speed, but you have the comfort and precision as well. So can you elaborate a little more on that?
Yeah, for sure. So we've always been known as being a performance company. No one out there has been beating us on speed. But like you said, in order to get the speed, it's typically that term radical. It's used a lot. It's a radical cam, so it's hard to pull, really harsh on the shot. Everything about it really wasn't fun or comfortable, but you're getting performance. But over the years, we've been learning a lot about being able to maintain that performance and getting a more comfortable cam. But not just that, but with the X technology that you mentioned earlier, there's so many things, so many technological advances that were put into that X technology that I really love to talk about. It's hard to convey that without a visual,
right.
But I'm going to do the best I can right here. And anybody that's listening to this knows our highly preloaded limbs, and I'm sure that seeing that a lot of other manufacturers out there are trying to duplicate that, but they can't. You'll see more of a straight limb, but parallel style, and they angle it with the limb pocket to get that look. But they'll never duplicate the X technology preload in the limbs. And what that it does many things, but one of the incredible things that preloaded limb does is when you take that shot, the limbs have so much load in them that it pulls the axles apart from each other during the shot so quickly. It pulls the cables and string together so tight, so fast, that it helps create a super short launch time, meaning from the time that you hit the trigger of your release, from the time the arrow's off the string, that's what we call launch time. It creates a super short launch time, giving you very, very little time to make a mistake during the shot. But even more importantly, beyond that launch time is our dynamic brace height. It stays really close to brace as possible. So a lot of people think, I need deep brace height to be forgiving. Well, with our bows, you don't need to go with a deeper brace height to be forgiving or to give up any accuracy. With our bows, it's the bow is releasing that arrow so close to brace that you can shoot a 6-inch brace height bow and not have to worry about giving up any forgiveness or accuracy. And if you look at anybody else's bows, we did some high-speed film testing on them to show people that any brand X model bow with a deeper brace height than ours, it holds on to that arrow so much longer than ours does that it releases it down, an inch or two past our dynamic brace height. And so brace height really is not an issue anymore. People still, we can't tell people enough, don't be afraid of shooting a short brace height. And you'll only get that forgiveness out of a short brace height bow with X technology built into it.
So in a way, it's kind of a myth nowadays, because even guys that I know, they want to go. They're like, well, you shoot a 6 1/4 brace height, it's probably not that forgiving. Yes, you're getting your speed. That's what they think, and that's what I thought. Yeah. But now, as you showed me those videos on YouTube with the dynamic brace height and everything, and I get it now. The one bow that you were shooting against, a PSE, the PSE's dynamic brace height, when the arrow launched off of the string, like when it exited the bow, that other bow wasn't even 3/4. It wasn't even.
It was still at 3/4 draw.
It was still at 3/4 draw.
It was still at 3/4 draw.
And it was released at the same exact time.
Right.
So, like you said, there's less room for error.
Yeah.
With that, and we were talking about the draw as well. The draw is so smooth on that. There's not like, before they're like, oh, it lumps into the draw and it's like really hard. This one, it's comfort. It brings it back. And you lock in. It's a solid back wall.
Yeah.
And you've really taught me that a brace height really, in a lot of ways, doesn't even mean anything.
Yeah. No, what brace height does for you now, really for us in our minds, is it kind of dictates what our draw length setting and range is going to be in that particular model. So if we got a 6-inch model brace height, most bows with that brace height typically fall within that 25 to 30-inch draw length setting. But if we need to get longer, then you need to go to a 7-inch brace height, and that bumps that draw length range up an inch. With that being said, that goes back to launch time, like we were talking about.
Yeah.
With that other bow that was still at 3/4 draw while the arrow was off of our string. That was with the 7-inch brace height model bow too, compared to our 6.
Their brace height was an inch bigger. You know?
So there's just so many great things that we put into the X technology that people just don't understand. It's not just looks. I mean, there's so much time and development put into those bows to help give the end user just the absolute best experience.
Yeah.
And we just, it's going to take a lot of educating on our part to let them know, you don't need crazy long axle to axle to be accurate. You don't need deep brace height to be forgiving. You can still shoot one of our bows at a comfortable, axle to axle length with a 6-inch brace height and still hit the middle every time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been shooting PSE personally for about 10 years now, and I shot a X-Force GX for a little bit, and that was kind of there was the Omen, which was the fast bow. I mean, that was the most, that bow was just crazy fast, but then the GX was kind of the same cam system a little bit than the Omen was. It was a little slower, but it was still screaming fast. Now that bow that bow was a very nice bow, but then when I got into like the Evo, and the Evo was a super nice bow, and then it went to the DNA, and the DNA to this day is still really up there.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite all-time bows.
Yeah.
Until the carbon one came out, and that carbon I can't get it on my hands,
Yeah.
But so, and I said that, the brace height is kind of a common myth. Is there any other common myths that people thought in the past, but now you guys have kind of revolutionized that, and it's really not even a factor anymore? Do you have any other ones?
Yeah, even with talking about let offs, and you mentioned that you hit a great topic, a great point with that GX cam. So it was essentially an upgraded version of the HF cam from the original X-Force, but in 80% let off. So one of the really cool things about being here and having full containment and full control of manufacturing here was when we introduced that X-Force, people were like, man, I really do like that bow a lot, but I sure would like it even more if you had it in 80% let off.
Right.
So the next year we introduced it with 80% let off, but it was slower, like you said. And because at the time, as we're learning more about the cams as we do today, at the time, the only way we knew how to get higher let off was to create a deeper valley. You create a deeper valley, then it takes longer for the string to ramp up to peak weight on the draw. So you're going to lose speed. Don't necessarily lose performance, but you're going to lose speed. So with our bows now, with the ECS cam, we're able to give you that deep valley comfortable feel, but it performs like a short valley bow. Customers don't know it, but it's performing like a short valley bow. But what they wanted is that deep valley feel. And I don't know how our engineers did it. They sprinkled some magic dust on it or something. But that's one of the features that we've asked them for is give us that high let off, give us that smooth pull, give us that comfort feel where I can just hold that thing back forever, and not lose any performance. And people don't know this, but our ECS cam actually shoots a little bit faster in the high let off position than it does in the low let off position.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
It blows people's minds to tell them that. But yeah, if you set it into the high let off position, you're going to get just a little bit more speed out of that high let off position, but you're getting that deep valley feel, crazy comfortable to draw and hold, and more speed. How about that? Yeah,
definitely. And I've shot a lot of bows. I've shot bear bows. I've shot Bowtech bows. I've shot a lot of them. And PSE is just, it's been the fit for me. And honestly, Chris and Casey are sponsored by you guys, PSE. Mm-hmm. I've shot PSE before I was even working for them. And that was just the bow for me. Actually, a good friend of mine had a GX, and he kind of got me into it. Okay. And he really liked it. And then I started shooting his a little bit. And then I was like, okay, I need to get one, and I really like it. And then, you and Blake and I were talking about the Evo the other night, how that was like a groundbreaking thing for PSE in the archery world. And then it just upped the game, like I said, from the DNA and then to the SP, and then, now with the carbon, and I just kind of want to squash all those myths out there, I guess, or whatever you want to call them, about people saying short brace heights aren't forgiving, and PSEs are only radical fast bows. It's not that. You really need to go and shoot them. Yeah, they might not feel right for you, but I just want that to be over and done with. Like it's not like that.
I'm right there with you. I want that to be over and done with you. And it even if it takes talking to one person at a time to educate them, we'll do it for sure. But that's why we put those videos out. Hopefully we have enough people going to look at them. But maybe we need to refresh everybody's memory. Go to the PSC channel, YouTube channel, and look up dynamic brace height. Look up launch time. Check those videos out, and they're going to be huge eye openers for you. But a lot of the guys that are just coming into it, the guys my age, all the old guys, we all grew up thinking that we needed deep brace height and long axle to axle. Yeah. So it's hard to convince those guys. It's hard to educate those guys. But there's so many guys like you that are so much younger than me that didn't have that long axle to axle deep brace height influence that I did. So, but it's still the same educating process to tell you guys. You don't have to have that to be accurate. Right. The Evo, it's funny to hear you talk about the models, because you're able to rattle off all the models better than I can in their succession over the years. But
well, you have so many bows that come in your door every day, so it's hard to, It's
tough, but yeah, just don't be afraid of the short brace height. Just don't. And don't get caught up in thinking that you need that deep break sight model bow. And it's hard because, I mean, unless you're listening to this podcast or unless you go to our YouTube channel to see that difference, when you go into that shop, in your mind and in every article you've ever read, they're telling you, go long axle, go deep break sight. So you go to the shop and you see everything hanging on the wall, you're going to gravitate towards that deep break sight model bow, but you're really not gonna do yourself any favors,
right?
Unless you're buying ours,
Yeah.
With the deep break sight target bow. But I can't say this enough, and even with me being part of that video, it's still mind blowing to see that we had that other bow shoot against ours with an inch deeper brace height that held onto that string 2 inches beyond our brace height.
Right.
So, and what a lot of people don't realize is for every little bit that string travels beyond brace with your arrow still connected to it, you're losing speed.
Explain that a little more for people because I can't see it. So, basically, if it's a 6-inch brace height and when you let go of the bow, if the arrow is connected when it gets past that 6 inches,
yes,
you're losing speed more, correct?
Yes. Every little bit that string carries your arrow beyond that 6 inches, you're losing speed. So, or whatever that brace height is of that model. For every bit that it travels beyond that measured brace height, you're losing speed, you're losing performance. With ours, you're not going to see it travel much beyond, maybe 3/4 inch, and I think at the most maybe an inch. But with a lot of other manufacturers' bows, and we've done the high speed testing here.
Right.
I mean, it's not just because I'm Bobby with PSE. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen it firsthand.
Yep.
And we put it out there for the world to see. Go to our YouTube channel to see. Every little bit that arrow stays on the string beyond brace, you're losing performance and you're losing speed, and it's just giving you that much extra time to make the slightest mistake. So you're losing speed and you're giving yourself a chance to pull yourself off the mark.
So, this is something I've been wanting to ask you. In general, this is a general question. Why do bows cost so much?
There's a lot of contributing factors to that, and I get that too. We're giving tours to people here pretty regularly, and the easiest way for me to show people that is when we're going through our CNC machine shop, and you can see some of the pieces of material that we're working on. So we use a lot of different types of materials. So in a nutshell, we offer, and everybody knows, we offer a lot of different bow options, from that entry level $300 entry level bow to that $1,500 high end target bow or hunting bow, and everything in between. And obviously there's different price points in between there, but we don't just inadvertently say this bow is going to be this much, this one is this much, this one is this much, using all the same materials. It just doesn't happen. So the different types of materials dictate costing. The amount of machine time dependent on the design of that handle dictates costing. For every second that handle is on a CNC machine, it's costing us money. So if it's a really intricate design, it's going to cost more money. You look at some of our entry level bows and how they're cut out. You don't see a lot of extra machining on the edges or on the front and back faces. It's primarily in the profile of it, and we do that to save money for the end user. If we can save money to make it, we're going to pass that savings on to the end user. But then we get into some of the higher end bows where we have forgings that are crazy expensive to make, so if it costs us a lot of money, we have to take it and pass it on. So there's the forgings and extrusions and castings and material types. Every bit of those are contributing factors to costing. And then within each of those models and handle types, there's differences in the design that dictate costing too. So there's so many different things that dictate the cost of a bow, to tell you why one bow is more expensive than another. A lot of it's in material, a lot of it's in the design time, and a lot of it is in the research and development stage too. All of those are contributing factors. I mean, we don't just inadvertently decide this bow's going to be this much, this bow's going to be this much. We there's so much that goes into each every one of them.
Yeah, and you guys offer a bow for basically everybody.
Yep.
Just about any price point you can buy a ready-to-shoot bow.
Mm-hmm.
It's got everything on it. Or to your higher-end bows, even your target bows or your crossbows, you guys offer a lot of things for any type of shooter, which is great.
Yeah, I love that we offer the ready-to-shoot model bows now. I mean, especially the guys that are just getting into it. It's a bit overwhelming. You flip through our catalog. There's so many different accessories. I mean, if you've never done it before, I'm not sure what to get. I do a little gun hunting, but not too much. But whenever I need to go get a new gun, I don't know which scope to get. I don't know which rings are best for that scope.
Right.
Whatever it is, I'm just not sure. And a lot of the gun companies give you that entry level package to get started, and then with that you learn what you liked and didn't like about it, and then you can go on from there and upgrade. But until I got to that point, I may not have ever even bought one.
Right.
Wouldn't have gotten started knowing that they had that package that manufacturer felt had all the right components for me to start with. So we have that mentality in mind too. We have a lot of us here are bow hunters. So between us, we look at all the bows and we feel that we put all the right accessories on these packages. So people, when they get it, they're not buying a ready to shoot bow from us and pulling an accessory off and dropping something else on. They're getting good quality accessories to start with that they're going to be able to run with for years. So it's easy for them to get into it, and then from that point they can decide if they want something more or just leave it just the way it is.
Well, and let's be honest too. I mean, guys, men or women that are getting into archery, they don't want to spend a lot of money either, because who knows if they're going to like it, or if they're buying it for their kid that's just coming up and they don't know if they're going to like it or not. You guys are offering bows and accessories and everything that aren't going to break the bank, that will give them a good entry-level bow that'll do what they want for a good period of time until they grow into another one, or if they do that.
And to expand on that a little bit, I mean, not only do we give them a great bow at a great price for them to get into, because I'm a dad too. I want my little guy to experience things. If there's something that he wants to do, I want him to experience it. But at the same time, I don't want to buy that top of the line model up front to find out he didn't like it.
Yep.
So it's nice to have that entry level model to get started with. But with our youth bows, with any other game out there, you don't have to worry about growing out of it. With archery and the kid, they're growing like weeds, and my little guy, he's the same way. And so, going a step further with archery, when you go to buy your kid's bow, you want to make sure that it's adjustable.
Right.
You want to make sure it's going to stay with them for a long time. Whether you find out they like that sport or not, you want to know that bow that you got them is going to last for a while. Not only the quality, but the adjustability of it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I'm really proud of is with our entry-level models, they're so highly adjustable. You can get down to like 11.5 inches to start, and it'll go out to a 28, 29-inch draw depending on which model you get. So more often than not, that youth that decided they liked it and want to stay with it, they're going to grow out of that model, meaning they're ready to upgrade to the next model, not necessarily growing out of the weight or the length of that model, but they've liked it enough or they shot it enough to realize that, yes, I'm ready to take the next step into that next level. And the parents don't have to worry about buying a bow and having to buy them another bow in a couple of years because they really like it and they're ready for the next one. That bow's going to last them a long time. Yeah.
And that kind of brings me to another point too, is, what makes the most effective hunting bow in your eyes? What should guys be, looking for to get into a hunting setup? Because, I was talking to Stefan Hansen this week, and he's the number one shooter in the world right now. And, he's a target shooter, and he does a lot of things that, like, he doesn't like a lot of mechanical things, like anything that could go possibly wrong on the range, Now, hunting guys, even if it was like, he doesn't necessarily do this, but what if it was like a cable slide? You guys have the roller guards and the cable slide as well. So, like, some 3D shooters I've been talking to, they'll take those roller guards off and use the cable slide because that is something mechanical that could happen to them on the range. And I think they get disqualified. Is that true?
No, not necessarily disqualified, but yeah, they do want to have the fewest mechanical parts as possible.
Right. So now for a bow hunter, what would be the most effective setup for them, whether it's accessories or arrows or what it is, or cams or axle to axle? I mean, break that kind of down.
Well, that's the beauty of what we have here, because every bow we have is going to be it's going to be effective for any bow hunter, and we offer so many different models. I think one of the most effective things that you can do for you before you even add any accessory is to find a bow that fits. If the bow doesn't fit you, it doesn't matter what you put on there, you're not going to perform well. The bow's going to do the same thing over and over again. But if it doesn't fit you and you're not doing the same thing over and over again, then it doesn't matter what accessory you put on. It's just not going to work real well. So make sure the bow fits you.
So what's a good way to even break it down even farther? What's a good way for somebody to measure their draw length if they don't know what it is?
There's a couple of ways to do it. I've been doing it long enough where I can look at you and say you're about a 28-inch, and we can start from there. And I think a lot of retailers are that way too. But the beauty of our bows and all of our cams, we've got the rotating inner cam. So, and I've done it a million times. I'm sure our dealers have too. As like I said, I can look at a guy and kind of figure he's about this draw length, whatever it is, set that rotating module to that draw length, and have him pull it back, and then use that as a starting point.
Okay.
But if you're at home, you're not sure what your draw length is. One real easy way to kind of figure out a good starting point is to stand square against the wall. If you're right hand or left hand, say you're right-handed, you're going to stand with your left shoulder facing the wall, and you want to make a fist with your arm fully extended and lay it up against the wall. And now you're standing perpendicular to the wall.
Yep.
And you turn your head and face your hand, and have somebody measure from the wall to the corner of your mouth.
Okay.
And then that's going to get you a good starting point.
Okay.
There's a couple other methods where you do wingspan and you have to do a lot of math. That's no fun. This is an easy one to do, and you still need two people to do it, but that's a good starting point. But I love that our cams are so highly adjustable that starting point, like I said, is just a starting point. Don't make that, put that in stone, because the different bow models are gonna change your effective draw length. The different type of releases are going to change the actual draw length. So you use that as a starting point. So when you go into the dealer, you're already that one step ahead.
Okay. In what, I guess to make it one step farther, is there and we kind of already squashed the brace height bug, so I won't even bring up that. I mean, any brace height's going to be good for a bow hunter, I would think. Types of cams. Is there any sort of type of cam that you're looking for a bow hunter, just like an average guy like you and I just going out bow hunting, whether it's whitetail hunting or elk hunting? Like, do you recommend a certain cam, or is it all?
In today's environment, if I was just to recommend any cam system, it would by far be our Evolve cam system, for hunting or target. When we're building a bow and we're building and designing a cam, 110% of our thought process is accuracy and consistency with this cam. So it's not necessarily, are we building a target bow, are we building a hunting bow? It first starts with, we need to come up with a cam that's just going to be as accurate and consistent as possible for the end user, and then we can take that cam design and then drop it into the different models from there. So when you're looking at a cam design, most hunters want high let off, and not necessarily need it, but they want it. So with that ECS cam system, you can get 80, 85, 90%. But if you're a target shooter as well, and most target shooters want and need lower let off, you can still stay with that Evolve cam system and put a lower let off module on there, and still get that perfect holding weight that you're after. So if I was to say which one cam to go with, the Evolve cam system all the way.
Does axle to axle matter? Because you see some manufacturers out there, they're actually making like 28-inch bows, 26-inch bows, and shorter. And then you have the other spectrum too, that they're making them 35, 36, 37. Does the axle really matter, or does that actually fit like a type of person? Like,
Yes, it matters to the type of person. That's a great question. And as a matter of fact, when you and I were going through this just the other day, we tried a couple different model bows, and and I'm shooting the Expedite, and so my first bow I wanted you to try was the Expedite. But when you put that's 33 inches axle to axle, and you put that 31 in your hand, and when you drew it back the first time, the look in your eyes and your statement was, this is it, this is mine, and there's no need to even try anything else. So the axle to axle matters to the individual. It's just what they want out of a bow, what they like out of a bow. I've got a guy in my local staff who's 6'4", 6'5", and he likes the shortest bows that we have available.
Really?
Every year he likes to shoot the shortest model available, and he shoots them well.
Really?
Yeah, he shoots them really, really well.
And I'm going to refer back to when we were shooting the other day, and when I put that 31, that Evolve 31 in my hand and shot it, it only took 3 arrows, and we literally pulled them off the shelf and put a whisker biscuit on them, put it to my draw length, and I used basically the same release I've used, but no sights and no nothing. And that bow felt like my bow the way it's set up at home. With stabilizers, sights, everything on it. It felt that way, and that's when it told me, I'm like, I'm comfortable with this bow. This is the one that's for me. And the Expedite was not a bad bow at all. It just didn't feel the way I needed it to feel. Same cam system, same, it's 2 inches bigger axle, but I'm a shorter guy, but I like that 31 to 32 inch there, and it does make a pretty big difference.
Yeah, it does make a huge difference. So, and that's what we cannot stress enough, is that what do we need to do to get you into your dealer to try it? I mean, you can look at our bows online, you can watch our videos over and over and over again, but until you get to your dealer and try it, like you did the other day with me, I mean, that's the only way you're going to really realize how good that bow feels.
And that's what I recommend to everybody that wants to get into a new bow. Go in there and shoot them. Like, go pick up 3 different bows. But what I like to do personally is, I'll shoot one 3 times or however many, and then I'll grab the next one right away and shoot that one. Grab the next one right away, shoot that one. Because then I can pick out the imperfections that I don't like or that I do like right away. Now, if I shoot one, go grab my arrows, come back and shoot. I don't know if it's the way my mind works. I just got to grab it,
you
shoot,
have to do it while it's fresh. It's still fresh in your
Yep.
mind. You're still thinking.
Exactly, because when I pull that 31 back, and then I grab the Expedite and pull that 33 back, it's like, okay, it's a little stiffer, but it's a little harder to draw, or whatever it is, or it's fresh in my mind, like you said, and that's just what's the most effective for me. So I want to tell everybody to go do that. Go grab 3-4 bows off the shelf. Don't think you're a nuisance. You're spending a lot of money on a bow. It's like buying a car in a sense too. Go grab them off the shelf, have someone set them up for you and say, I want to shoot all these bows, and go do it right there. And that's what's going to give you, I think, the best results.
All of your good pro shops will accommodate that.
Yeah.
All of them will. And then, to take that a step further, like we said at the beginning, we've always known that we've been beating everybody in speed. And the last couple of years, I'll admit, we were losing to feel. And most customers are sold at that 3-yard range in the back of the shop. So all they're wanting to know is how that bow feels at full draw and how it feels on the shot. And there were some other companies that were introducing some high let-off cams that felt good at that 3-yard range, and they were beating us on feel. But once they bought it and took it home, we're realizing that this bow feels good when I shoot it, but it's not as accurate as I can be, and they're realizing that.
Right.
This bow feels good to shoot, but it's not shooting as well as I know I can shoot. So when you get to your retailer, try them all, find out which one feels better for you, but take them out and shoot them for groups too.
Right.
I mean, should be even a bigger deciding factor for you. I mean, you don't want to know that when you're in a tree stand that bow feels good when you missed. You want to know that it felt great and that you're going to hit your spot. So shoot it for groups too.
So, we just hit on axle to axle. The weight of the bow, the mass weight, does that really matter for a bow hunter? I mean, is it something big?
The industry has dictated that, meaning the bow hunting consumers have basically told the world, I want lighter, and lighter, and lighter, and lighter. And what you have to be careful with is, do you want the lightweight or do you want the right weight?
Mm-hmm.
If you get too light, typically in the past you get lightweight, it meant more vibration, more hand shock. But with our X technology built into the bows, and now even going a step further with our carbon handles, you can get to that 3.2 pounds, and you still get a great feeling bow in your hand, and you're not gonna give up any accuracy. You're gonna maintain the good feel. You're not gonna give up any accuracy, but still, you want the right weight. So I know we talked a lot about it over the last couple of years. I have a carbon bow myself, and I've got a front stabilizer and a back bar on it.
Yep.
To add a little bit of mass weight just to give me a little more stability on
Mm-hmm.
those long range shots.
Yeah, and that's what, I've got the carbon as well, and that's what I'm kind of trying to fight with right now with my back stabilizer and my front stabilizer, trying to play with weights to see where the best is. I've been pretty good the last couple of years with it, but I'm now just trying to make the jump to be even more precise with it. Now I watch Louis and Stefan shoot, and it's like, okay, and I want to get just a little bit better, and they're professional shooters as well, and they do it for a living, but it just makes you want to do a little better, even if it is in the woods. You know?
And I love to hear that from you. I mean, don't get complacent.
Yeah.
I mean, we're always getting better and better, and we're better today than we were yesterday. But knowing that, continue to want to get better. That's what I really like. But
Right.
also realizing that, there was a time when you first started and we couldn't hit a pie plate at 20 yards.
Right.
And the next thing you know, you're doing it every time. And that was a big stepping stone for you at the time. And then you went from that 10-inch pie plate to an 8-inch, so it was better, but just not leaps and bounds like it was
Right.
before. So
Yeah.
every day we're getting better. I don't think a lot of guys are really realizing it because
Right.
it's just not those big leaps and bounds like they were at the beginning.
Yeah.
So continue to want to get better, continue to strive to get better, and work on new things. I mean, you may not see it, you may not think it, but you're making yourself better every time.
Yeah, and so the last two I have on this subject is draw weight and speed. Now, draw weight is probably a pretty big one because, you see a lot of guys that always have to pick their bow arm up and draw back, and especially if you're in a tree stand or on, ground with an elk hunt or something. Me personally, I like to be able to sit down, hold my bow arm up, and if I can't pull my bow straight back without moving because I'm a right-handed shooter, my bow arm, my left arm up, then I feel like I have too much weight. Even though I can pull it back, that's too much weight. Now, explain a little bit about bow weight, draw weight basically, and where you should really find where you should be.
Yeah, that's a great point there. And what I tell people all the time is, if you're going to hunt with it, I want you to hunt with as much weight as you can pull comfortably. And I don't know what that is. You have to find that out for yourself. But you explained it perfectly. If you can sit, or from the most awkward position that you can think of in any hunting situation, if you can pull that bow back smoothly and easily and still get to anchor and make a comfortable shot, then that's the right weight for you.
Okay.
So typically what I will do is, if I'm in a tree stand, lucky enough to be in a tree stand, if I can hold my pin basically on my target and then draw back
And keep the pin
and
on the
keep
target?
the pin on my target, and then that's the right weight for me.
Okay.
And you can, like you said, you can do it smoothly.
Right.
You don't want to get detected. You don't want to get busted.
Yeah.
So you want to already be aiming towards your target, your animal at that point.
Yeah.
You don't want to have to sky draw and then come back and find them. You want to stay focused on them. You don't want to have to take your eyes off of them. Pull as much weight as you can so that you can lay your pin on him at the beginning and then smoothly draw it back and anchor.
Now, also with the draw weight, let's say you have a 70-pound bow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's 70-pound limbs. That's the max it can go to. Do you recommend guys backing their poundage off from a 70-pound to a 60-pound, or should they just go out and get 60-pound limbs?
Well, if you're only ever going to shoot 60, then get 60-pound limbs. Every bow shoots best at peak weight. But the cool thing about the X technology limbs is that our limbs are so highly preloaded that even if you get that 70 and take it down to 60, you're still going to maintain great performance and speed. if you get that 70 and take it down to 60, you're going to be slower than if you were shooting that same bow at 60. And the reason being is when you back the limb bolts out that far, you're changing getting a deeper break height, essentially.
Okay.
So you're changing the effective break height of that bow, and by doing that, you're changing the effective draw length. So you're gonna have to set the module down to the next shorter setting. So you're changing your power stroke effectively by getting that 70 down to 60. But when you do that, you're not losing a lot of performance. You're not losing a lot of feel, because the highly preloaded limbs are going to pull those cables and string together so tightly, so quickly. That bow's still going to feel great if you take that 70 down to 60. But if you're ever only going to shoot 60, do yourself a favor and get a 60-pound bow or 60-pound limbs.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense, because, I have some friends that do have 70 pounds and they have backed it off to like 63 or 64. And me, I always thought too, not that they're doing anything wrong, but I feel like if I have a 70-pound bow, I need to shoot at 70 pounds. And I need to get to the point where if I need to practice at 62 to get to 65 to 60, and work my way up to 70, then that's what I have to do.
Yeah.
But like you said, I want peak performance out of that bow, and I feel like even when I back a bow off from 70 to, let's say, 62 or 63 pounds, when I shoot that bow, in a sense, it kind of feels like it's not bolted down all the way. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of loose. It's like a loose screw, and I don't like that feeling. So it's like I like everything tight and precise
And that used to be with even our bow designs in years past. Everything felt loose when you backed it out. But with our X technology limbs, if you get into anything in the X technology line with the preloaded limbs, it's not going to feel loose, but it's not going to perform like it would at peak weight. All bows will perform best at peak.
Yeah. So I want to move on to some practice. What are some practice exercises to improve your skills and accuracy? What could you be doing on the range before bow hunting to improve all your skills?
Specifically for bow hunting and season, getting out in the environment that you're going to be in, if at all possible. I know it used to sound cheesy when I would read the article about people saying, put your jacket on that you're going to hunt with. Well, I'm going to hunt next month in Ohio, and it's going to be cold. But right now in Tucson, it's 156 degrees. So I don't want to wear a jacket. But I personally experienced it where I've gone out and I didn't have the gear that I was going to use during the hunt, and I ran into some problems. Whether my string hit my jacket or whatever. But when you're getting ready to practice, shoot a lot of good arrows. Shoot as many good arrows as you can. People think, practice makes perfect. So they go out and they just shoot and they shoot and they shoot and they shoot. And that's good. And it's great for conditioning. It's great to create that muscle memory. But if you're not out there shooting the best arrows you can every shot, then you're really not doing yourself a favor.
Yeah.
You're creating those muscles, but if you want to make a good shot, practice good shots. Every single time, practice good shots. Practice at odd distances, especially if you're shooting a pin-style sight. You're not always going to get lucky and have that animal stand at 30 or 40 or whatever your pin setting is.
Right.
Practice shooting in between those dots. Practice shooting in different positions, kneeling, sitting, sometimes, and I've had it happen before with elk, where I've set up on my knees in a position where I think he's coming from, and he comes from a different position. I had to turn and make that shot. Practice those positions.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys make a huge mistake of setting their bows too long, and they think they want to set it with a real long draw length so that they can get some more speed. But when you do that, you are, when you have to make that twisted up shot, it's hard to maintain that extra draw length on there. So double check your draw length. Doesn't hurt to be shorten it even just a little bit if you ever are put into that situation.
Yeah.
But the best thing to do is practice with good shots.
So quality over quantity, basically.
Yes.
If you go out and shoot 3 arrows, 1 week, make sure they're 3 quality shots.
Yeah.
You don't have to go out and shoot 30.
And a lot of the hunting we do out here is a lot of spot and stock, and I've had it happen before where I've had to I found a mule deer or whatever it is that I'm hunting, and he's in the draw, and I see him come. He's on just the other side of this hill, and I have to I know he's on the move, so I have to run up this hill to get to the top to head him off. And I don't always have the luxury of getting to the top and catching my breath.
Right.
So you have to know that you're going to be able to make a good shot, while you're breathing hard, while you're fatigued, so practice those situations if you can. That all of those will pay off.
Yeah, and something I run into too, and when I'm hunting, I don't like wearing gloves. Like, I just don't like shooting with gloves on. But practice with gloves anyway, because you never know, you might get in a situation where you have to wear those gloves.
Yes.
And I still do practice with gloves, and I practice without gloves. So that's another good way that I like to get ready. And like what you said, shoot at odd distances, because before I've got to the point where you just go out and you just go through the motions. You shoot at 20 yards every night, and it's like, you pull your bow up, it's at 20 yards, I shoot at 20. Well, I like shooting at 37. I like to shoot at 31.
Good.
And I've got a 1-pin adjustable spot hog sight that I like to practice dialing in that sight precisely.
Yes.
If it's at 57, I'm going to shoot it at 57. I'll never shoot an animal probably that far, but I like shooting farther distances because it makes that 30, 25, 20 a chip shot.
Much easier,
yeah.
Yes.
And that was a good point you made, that the odd distances, I really like doing that.
And then practicing with your equipment too, like you said. I shoot a multi-pin sight, but if you have that dial-up sight, know that you're going to know how to use it at the right time. Don't learn how to use it when you need to use it. Figure it out beforehand. Know your equipment. Know your rangefinder. Know your boat. Know your release. Whatever. Know how to clip your release on your string when you're wearing gloves.
Yeah.
One of the I'll tell you a quick story. Is coming from here. It's always so hot out here. So when the temperature drops a little bit, I get cold. I'm a big sissy and I get cold. So whenever I'm hunting, when it's cool out, I have to have gloves on. I have to have a face mask on. Something to keep me warm, keep my head warm. And I was in Missouri in a stand, and I had a deer come in, and I drew back after having this big face mask on to keep me warm, and I thought, I can make this shot. It's close. I can still see through my peep. I can still see my pin. I can still execute this shot. And it was a total miss. It was a total miss. And I was so caught up in the moment, I didn't realize that I had to tilt my head over sideways to get into the peep because I'm such a big sissy. I had a big face mask on to keep me warm. And, just a huge, huge eye-opener. And that's one of the things that I try and tell people now is practice before you get out there. Don't figure out at that time that you need to do things differently when you're wearing gloves, when you're wearing a mask, when whatever. Don't find out then. Learn it before you get out there.
I like the point you alluded to, shooting the quality arrows over quantity as well, because that rings true to what I've been doing. My wife, she doesn't get to shoot a lot, and she'll pull out her bow and she might shoot 5 or 6 times and she gets tired, and then, I always try to kind of push her to shoot more arrows. And now that I should probably be bringing that back a little bit and just say, go out and just say you're going to shoot 5 quality arrows.
Yeah.
Just shoot those and really concentrate on those 5 arrows. Because in the grand scheme of things, like you said, with the muscle memory, you only have to execute that shot one time. So it's got to be the best shot that one time.
Either
so
have her go out and shoot 5 or go out and have her shoot as many good arrows as she can. If it's 5, if it's 10 or whatever it is, have her shoot as many good arrows as she feels that she can. And then, because once you start getting fatigued, bad habits start forming. You don't want to finish that session on bad habits.
Right.
Because that's going to be the last thing on your mind and the first thing you think of when you pick it up the next day.
Yeah.
So once you start feeling fatigued and you feel like you're not doing things right, put it away.
Yeah.
It's okay. As long as you felt that you put in however many good arrows before then you had a good session. It doesn't mean it was a good session unless you shot 100 arrows.
Right.
It's a good session if you shot as many of the best arrows as you can.
Right.
Yeah.
And one last question I have for you, and this is for maybe a new bow hunter that's wanting to get into it. What would you recommend for that bow hunter's wish list? What should they be going out there if you're in a market for a bow to get into bow hunting? What should that wish list consist of?
I love that topic because even as long as I've been in it, I was still that first time bow hunter too, and I still remember the excitement of going out to find all of the new gear, and even back then it was overwhelming for me because I was brand new and I didn't know what to look for. I just knew I needed some new gear, and it was exciting and fun to find all of the right gear. So the best thing for that new bow hunter is to get to your local dealer. Rely on your friends and your buddies. If you have any buddies and friends that are already bow hunters, lean on them and get some topics from them. And if you don't, get to that local retailer, get to your authorized PSE retailer. They're going to give you all of the good advice. You can even call into our customer service department and ask those questions, and our guys will tell you, some of the right things to get. But read some articles, listen to Aaron's podcast, and we'll get you into the right places.
Yeah.
But that is such a cool and exciting topic. Even as long as I've been doing it, I still love, helping people get into their first bow and help them set up their gear. So
definitely.
Probably didn't answer your question.
No, you answered it perfect.
But, that's cool and exciting.
And I'm glad you brought up the customer service here, because they are second to none. I'm a big guy in customer service, and I've had to call, if I can't get a hold of you, I've had to call PSE and get some some pointers on what I need to do. And now that I've got to meet the people in customer service, and face to face, they're very great people, and it's second to none. And you just give me an hour of your time, and we've been busy the whole week, and I appreciate you coming on and doing this, we could get it done.
I love it.
I definitely want to get you on again to talk about maybe more precise things as far as like release aids and arrow building. You and I have been talking about arrow building for the last 3 days.
Yeah.
And before I would just think, I just need to buy arrows. These are the right spine. I'm going to just fletch them. No, there's a lot more into arrow building than I really thought, and I think we should really dive into that. But today we'll end her here, and we'll get you back on and do some arrow building stuff.
I would love to be back. I would love to be back. If I can help anybody else, or even just to sit here and chat again, it's always fun. And I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thanks, Bobby.
Very cool.
Wow. I mean, I hope you were taking notes on that, because I'm going to have to go back and listen to it about 13 times just to get everything down on paper so I can keep all that information fresh in my mind. And it does help that I can call Bobby at any time and ask him any questions and he'll answer. But holy tornado, that was a lot. I get it, but there's a lot of good, valuable information in there, and that's what I was looking for from that. And like I said earlier, I'm going to get Bobby back on here sometime, and we're going to talk a lot about arrow building and how to build the best arrow for bow hunting. And I'm really excited about that, because there's a lot that actually goes into it. So, with all that being said, I want to thank everybody for all the support, and please, please, please go to iTunes and leave a rating, leave a 5-star rating if you would, and leave some feedback, because that's how the podcast keeps running. And the good feedback, and even if it's bad feedback, I want to know all that stuff. Let me know. Also, go to the Instagram page, follow that, the Fall Podcast, on Instagram and Facebook. I'm not very good with the Facebook thing. I really don't know much about it, but I know there's a Facebook crowd out there, so I just like to put stuff on there. But go there, like it, follow it. And I'm starting to do some vlogs here and there, just some videos. I'm trying to get some up about just from my experiences. I'm not saying this is the right or wrong thing. I'm just showing you what my experiences are, and hopefully somebody might be able to take something from it. So that's all I got for you today. I appreciate everybody listening and really the support. It's crazy. I love it, and thank you very much. And don't forget, an all-new podcast next Wednesday. Thanks, guys.